The setting sun painted the desert sky with golden and orange hues, casting long shadows over the dunes. The wind blew softly, lifting small whirlwinds of dust as Moses led his flock through the arid hills of Midian. His staff was firm in his hand, his gaze lost on the horizon. Years had passed since he fled Egypt, trading the luxuries of the palace for the simplicity of the desert. Now, his life revolved around guiding the sheep of his father-in-law Jethro. The scorching heat of the day would soon give way to the cold darkness of the night, a cycle Moses had grown accustomed to. But even there, far from everything, his heart was restless. Sometimes when silence dominated the landscape, memories of Egypt returned to him. Time had not erased them. He still saw the faces of the Hebrew slaves, the weight of their chains, the looks of despair. And then, the most painful memory of all, the uncontrollable rage that led him to take the life of an Egyptian. That moment shattered his life. From a prince, he became a fugitive. Now he was just a shepherd, wandering the desert, uncertain if he would ever find a true purpose. Then something unusual caught his attention. A bright glow cut through the encroaching dusk. Moses narrowed his eyes, trying to make out the source of the light. It looked like a flame, but something was different. Curious, he began walking toward it. Climbing the rocky slope, his heart pounded with each step. As he approached, he froze, his gaze locked on the vision before him. There at the center of the hill, a bush burned with flames, but was not consumed. The fire danced around its branches and leaves, yet nothing crumbled, nothing turned to ash. The light was intense, almost divine. Moses had never seen anything like it. Then a voice called his name twice from within the flames. Moses shuddered. A chill ran down his spine. His entire body froze. The fire was speaking? How was this possible? His heart raced and he fell to his knees. In a barely audible whisper, he answered that he was there. The voice resounded again, deep and powerful, commanding him not to come any closer and to remove his sandals, for the place where he stood was holy ground. With trembling hands, Moses untied the leather straps and obeyed, feeling the warmth of the sand beneath his bare feet. The voice then identified itself as the God of his father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Upon hearing these words, Moses understood. This was no ordinary fire. He was in the presence of God himself. Instinctively, he covered his face with his hands, fearing to look directly at such glory. His entire body trembled. God continued, saying he had seen the affliction of his people in Egypt and heard their cries. He knew their suffering and had come down to deliver them and lead them to a good and spacious land, flowing with milk and honey. The words echoed in the desert silence. Moses' heart pounded. Then God's voice rang out with unquestionable authority, commanding Moses to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses' blood ran cold. His eyes widened in shock. Free the Hebrews? Confront Pharaoh? He who had spent years hiding in the desert was supposed to return to Egypt? His breath quickened. God was giving him an impossible mission. Moses questioned in his heart, who was he to go before Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt? But God responded with firmness, assuring him that he would be with him. Still hesitant, Moses asked what he should say if the people questioned who had sent him. What was God's name? Then from within the flames, God spoke words that would echo through eternity. I am who I am. Moses was to tell the Israelites that I am had sent him. Moses stood motionless. The creator of the universe himself was sending him. But how could he accept? He feared that the people would not believe him, that they would say he was lying. Then God promised to give him signs to prove he had been sent. Moses looked at his staff, confused, when God commanded him to throw it to the ground. He obeyed, and the moment the staff touched the earth, something terrifying happened. It twisted, came to life, and became a serpent. Moses jumped back, terror etched on his face. Then God commanded him to grab the serpent by the tail. Hesitantly, Moses reached out. The moment he grasped it, it turned back into a staff. His eyes widened in astonishment. But God was not finished. He ordered Moses to place his hand inside his cloak. Moses obeyed, and when he pulled it out, his face went pale. His skin was white as snow, covered in leprosy. He held his breath. Then God commanded him to put his hand back inside. Trembling, Moses did as he was told. When he withdrew it again, his skin was restored. God announced a third sign, the transformation of the Nile's water into blood. If the people did not believe the first two signs, they would believe the third. Even after such wonders, Moses still hesitated. He argued that he was never eloquent, that his mouth was slow and heavy. God's voice thundered with authority, reminding him that he was the one who gave man his mouth, who made him mute or deaf, seeing or blind. Moses lowered his head out of arguments. Yet he made one last plea, asking God to send someone else. The flames of the bush burned even brighter, and God responded that his brother Aaron would speak for him. He would teach them both what to say. Moses realized he could no longer run. His mission was sealed. The desert lay in silence, but something inside Moses had changed. He took a deep breath. If God had chosen him, who was he to question? The next day he bid farewell to Jethro and gathered his family. He took his staff and set out. Each step brought him closer to Egypt, and closer to the destiny that would change the history of an entire people.